Hey friends, Ginger here. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. This video might end up being pretty chaotic because my last video I filmed was so sorry, but I hope you enjoy anyway. I read 10 books in the month of February. I am very proud of that. I feel like I read a lot. Not only, like, I know some people probably have read more books, but I did read a lot of very big books, like over 500 pages. So I am pretty happy with my progress in the month. I have not gotten my stats, so I'm just going to do that after when I'm editing this and leave the stats here if you're interested. But I did read a lot of books, and I actually read a few 5-stars this month, which was really good because last month I didn't read a single 5-star. I came close, but just didn't find a new favorite. This month I found some good ones. So, without further ado, because I have a lot of books to talk about, let's just get into my wrap-up. The first book that I finished was the only ebook this month, and that is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I obviously gave this one 5 stars. It was just, there was nothing bad about it. I had never read an Elizabeth Acevedo book before. This one was very lyrical. I had never read a book in verse even. I thought that it was really well done, and it hit a very emotional topic, and it was done very well. So I gave it a 5 stars because I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Is it a book that I would have picked up without BookTube? Probably not, but I am glad that I had the opportunity to read it. So if you haven't yet, I definitely recommend it. I think that almost anybody would still enjoy this book, even if it's not your normal type. So I say pick it up if you already haven't. Next, I read the James Harriott book. If you guys didn't already know or didn't watch the video from last month, I was reading books that I hauled in 2016 and had yet to read this month. And I will say I was successful and read all of them. So, pat on the back to me. The first one of those was the James Harriott book, All Creatures Great and Small. I ended up giving this one a 3-star. It actually took me a lot to get through this. I think it's because it is an older book, and so it has an older style. And despite the fact that this is about a veterinarian, I felt like there wasn't as many veterinarian scenes as I was hoping there would be. It was very much a learning about James Harriott and his relationships book and like the people he worked with. And that's totally fine. I'm not saying I hated it, but it wasn't a book that I loved. It was just average for me. I gave it a 3. So I actually do not think I will be continuing on with the other books. I'm going to be unhauling them, donating them to another bookstore, or sending them to a friend. But I am glad that I did read it finally, as I've had it on my shelf so long. But just not my favorite animal book. Then I read the 2 monstromologist books that I needed to read, which were, let me grab them, The Isle of Blood and The Final Descent by Rick Yancey. I ended up, I gave The Isle of Blood a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. This one was over 500 pages. It was a journey, and I forgot how much I did enjoy Will Henry and the adventures he went on with hunting monsters. And so I remember just flying through this one, really enjoying it. I gave it a 4. And then The Final Descent, the last book, I only gave a 3. I couldn't decide if I hated it or loved it, what it did. It was very interesting, and I don't know what to say. The ending of this was not what I was expecting, and that's what I'm going to leave it as, because it is a 4-book series. I really enjoyed this series, from what I remember, the first 2 books being, and then ending it. I think it is very underhyped and is really cool and has a really interesting premise. However, I would rather someone else read it and enjoy it than me keep it on my shelves and just have it sit. So I am going to be passing it on to a friend, the entire box set. And I'm very glad that I finished it, but it's time for it to meet a new owner. Then for the Buzzwordathon, that happened in February, it had to deal with colors. I read Red Rising by Pierce Brown, and I gave this a 4.5 star. I actually really enjoyed this, and after I read it, I was looking at some of my friends' ratings, and they don't like it. I think this is a better Hunger Games. I really enjoyed like the complete transformation of Darrow, our main character, and like what he had to go through, and then how he dealt with the rest of the plot. I am not sure if I'm going to continue on with the series, although I really enjoyed like this book. I just don't know like if I want to continue. Like, I've found a lot of the books I have read this year that are starts to a series, I've just been content with where they are in the first book, and I don't need to go on. Obviously that's not true for every one of them, but a lot of them I feel like that is a thing. So if you do like dystopian and you like the trope of an underdog rising up to fight a bad system, then you really should read Red Rising. I know a lot of people like it, and I'm sad that I sat on it this long, but also happy I got to it now. I will be keeping this book because, just in case I want to get the series, I liked it enough that I'm going to keep it, I think. Then we read probably my favorite book of the month, which is Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I was very skeptical going into this. This was another one I had to read from 2016. I thought it was going to be very dense, and I wasn't going to like the characters, and I wasn't going to get very involved, but I did. I mean, this is an 800-page book. I really should have just figured that I would have ended up liking characters in the story. I've already picked up the sequel. I am excited to continue on reading it, and I just loved it, and I understand the hype now and why people like this book. So I'm very glad that I read it. I will be keeping this book, and if you are a fantasy lover and haven't read Game of Thrones yet, you really should. It is good. Then another behemoth of a book, and another one I had to read from 2016, Bag of Bones by Stephen King. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I had actually watched this movie at one point back in my future. I don't remember it very well, but I did remember some parts. So like the twist at the end, I already kind of knew, but the build up I forgot about. I thought this could have been a little shorter. King is very much known for dragging his stuff out, and although I do like King, it did take me a while to get invested in this book. Like, it took me at least 100 pages to even care about our character and the plot, so that's why I only gave it a 4. I do think that it was like, it wasn't a horror book, it was more of a thriller mystery, and so I liked that aspect, that he did something a little different, and this is one of his books that isn't horror and like what he's known for. So yeah, I gave it a 4. I think I'm going to pass it on though, because I'm never going to reread it. So I liked it, but I'm not keeping it. If you haven't read Bag of Bones and you are a thriller, like you like thrillers more than horror, then if you're going to pick up a Stephen King, you should pick up this one, because it is a decent thriller and it's by a good author. And we have my 2021 debut for February, The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. I give this one a 4. I think this one had a really interesting premise. So this is about our main character, what's her name? Decca is our main character. She is, obviously, she has darker skin than the people in her town because her mother came from the south and she was from the north, or her father's from the north. So she kind of had to deal with being an outcast for a while, and like she wanted to prove herself, and how you prove yourself pretty much is to show that your blood is pure and you're not a monster. And the beginning of this, she obviously fails her test, and that is kind of where we go down the line of her dealing with that fact that she is not a pure blood, she has gold blood. And we discover what that means and how that is being utilized in this world. And I thought it was just very unique, and I enjoyed the idea that Namina Forna brought into this book. Will I continue on in the series? Probably not. I, again, just thought that this book was fine how it was, and it was a very decent YA fantasy. So if you're looking for another good, unique YA fantasy, then I would suggest this one, because it does do good things. I just am content leaving it at this book, and I am going to pass it on to someone else, because I'm probably not going to reread it, even though I did like it, and I would rather someone else pick it up and love it. Then we have 2 books left that I was not expecting to read, and they were not on my original TBR. But I worked on Thursday this week, and I took both these books and I read them both in that day. So the first one we have here is Someone We Know by Sherry Lapina. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 star. I thought it was just above average. I like Shari Lapina's writing. I think she did a good job at making a domestic thriller. Domestic thrillers aren't really my favorite type, so I wasn't super like connected. I think she did a good job at like weaving us through the book, but I actually guessed who did it at the beginning and I was right. So that kind of, on one way I was like, yeah, I guessed that, but on the other way I was like, well, that was easier than I was expecting it to be. And so like there's not as much surprise. And again, it was domestic and not really my thing. Lots of like cheating going on and bad representation of a woman, I think. So it was just okay. Passing it on, obviously, because I'm not going to reread it. And then the other one I read was The Hiding Place by C.J. Tudor, which I found out is also the taking of Annie Thorne in the UK. After reading the book, that title, The Taking of Annie Thorne, doesn't make sense to me after reading this book. Like, I don't know why they chose that language, but whatever. So this is about a character. His name's Joe. He is a teacher, and he ends up moving back to his hometown to take a teaching job and kind of also deal with unfinished business there. All his friends from his teen years are still living there, and they had like a falling out for some reason. We don't know why at the beginning. And we learn about his younger sister and the fact that she passed away when she was younger. And so it's kind of a mystery about that and about like supernatural things. I gave this one a 3. I don't remember if I said that yet. It was quick to get through. I do enjoy C.J. Tudor's writing. Like, I think it has a sense of uniqueness to it, but I think she also gets a lot of her inspiration from Stephen King. After reading The Chalk Man and now this one, I can like clearly connect them to Stephen King books. And I feel like she even takes some of her writing style and makes it seem like a Stephen King writing style. So I liked it better in The Chalk Man than I did in this one. I would say that there are Pet Sematary vibes in here, but no animal stuff. And like his short stories, sometimes they come back. I got those vibes like completely. I could just be like, you ripped this off. And I'm not saying she did, but it felt like that. So I didn't really appreciate that. And if you aren't sure if that's something you want to read about, then just maybe look into it a little bit more. It was just okay. The twist was interesting, kind of. I feel like it had a little bit of a supernatural twist to it, but I don't know. I wasn't impressed. So it is what it is. I will also be passing this one on to someone, but at least I read it and got to read another C.J. Tudor. So there we have it, guys. Those are all of the books that I read in February. Again, I'm very happy that I ended up reading 10 books. I feel like that is an accomplishment for me, especially because many of those were pretty long books. So let me know in the comments what you guys read in February. I would really love to know what your favorite book was, or maybe even your least favorite book. I am just a curious person. And if any of these books you want to talk about, hit me up. I will be willing to talk about them because that's part of the reason why I'm here. To make friends, talk about books. So thank you again for watching. Make sure to give this video a like if you liked it and subscribe to see more of my content in the future. But until that future, I will see you all then. Bye!